So, Randy Pitchford just, oh God, this guy can't keep his mouth shut to save his life. And usually when he does open his mouth, it's something stupid. So, let's see what kind of stupid he's going to say this time. So, I'm not going to read all of it. I just got some highlighted stuff that I wanted to kind of go over. So, basically, he pointed out that in the past he had pointed out to players to refund the gains, suggesting they, code their own engine kind of thing, and to accept the reality of relationship between their hardware and what software they are running is doing. Again, I'm not gonna tread on that kind of stuff because I've already given my opinion on it before. He's an idiot. It's plain and simple. And again, yeah, people were struggling to run it on 5090s, so anymore it's expected with AAA games, I feel, just because there's no real optimization anymore. But anyways, so he moved from talking about development to reflecting on gaming as a whole and whether the industry has ever truly produced a masterpiece. Now, I'm just going to say this is a pretty wild statement to make, saying that, there's never been a masterpiece in video games. And he makes a comment about Citizen Kane or whatever. I feel that there are I wouldn't really say masterpieces, but I think there's games in general that people remember very fondly, or, I guess I can get, how do I want to say this? I guess comparing it to the movie industry, where we have movies that are memorable, off the top of my head, you got stuff like Scarface, Saving Private Ryan, Forrest Gump, just movies that everybody knows and they were great movies of their time, or even The Godfather. There's movies like that. Now, there are things that are, not perfect with them, yes, but they are classics. People remember them. They are, considered masterpiece kind of movies. They're in that same class. And I think there's plenty of games like that we could consider. I mean, you've got your Halos, you've got your original Call of Duties. I say original Call of Duties because I don't think Call of Duty's had a good game in the last decade. But there are games that I would consider masterpiece kind of category, or in that ballpark. Now, but during the conversation, he discussed the massive investment that modern games require. Now, modern AAA games, because we all know that the amount of investment that it takes for indie and AA teams significantly reduced. It's a given. And we all know it because there's been plenty of reports and articles talking about that. So, described how it takes the collaboration of hundreds of people. No, it does not. And comes with costs that are now rival blockbusters movies. No, it does not need to. It can only happen if everybody in that loop believes that what's being imagined has more value and exists in the world than what it takes to create it. Which means you need both need the idea of what it takes to create it, the belief in it, what it takes to create it, and sense of what it might be worth if it was created. I think this is just more ego nonsense. Basically just saying that, you need to have what it takes to make your dreams come true kind of nonsense. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, it is to an extent, but it also isn't. I love that I'm in it, and I love that we're just getting started. When I say we, I'm talking about the whole industry together. We haven't even had our Citizen Kane yet, let alone Jurassic Park or Star Wars. We're just figuring this out, but it's fun. Again, I think that's a crazy take to have, because there's plenty of games people remember very fondly, or they would consider that certain games to be in that category of greatness. I think for me, the first game that comes to mind when I think of what was a game that I considered to be this amazing masterpiece that, I will always remember, or, have a very high opinion of it. And I think for me, personally, I would say probably the first Gears of War, just because I have a lot of memories of it. And then playing Gears of War 2 had kind of a similar thing. I think the multiplayer was better, not so much the story, but I don't know. I would almost say a lot of older RPGs, like Final Fantasies and stuff like that. A lot of the older Tales of games, a lot of those I would consider, masterpiece level. But I don't really think I can think of a modern game that I could put in that category outside of your Baldur's Gates or your Elden Ring. I think those are the two more modern games that I could probably put into that class or category. His comment is both an acknowledgement of how far games have come and claim that the industry's defining artistic moment is still ahead. I don't think that's true at all. It does raise an interesting question. Do game masterpieces already exist, or are we still waiting for that defining moment? I'm sure many would argue that we already have them, but that one person calls a master but what one person calls a masterpiece might not be the same to someone else, and I can kind of see that because, a lot of things are subjective. So, but yeah, it even highlights, like Halo 3, Baldur's Gate 3, Red Dead Redemption, Witcher 3, Elden Ring. Great examples of, masterclass kind of games, very memorable. I would consider, most of these like instant classics. So, what counts as a masterpiece in gaming is always going to be subjective. Again, there probably won't ever be a single universally agreed upon Citizen Kane. It's no secret that gaming seems to be consistently evolving with new games coming out all the time and many being considered masterpieces now more than ever. Almost like a golden age despite industry concerns and rising prices. There's always a game that stands out among the crowd, breaking the norm that corporations keep chasing. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say that, yes, a lot of your AAA developers and these teams, they are going to try to chase after these masterpieces, because there's a lot of Randy Pitchfords and Neil Druckmanns within the AAA space. These game directors that think that, they are the golden child of the industry, and everything they create is instant gold. And it's so not true. I think that these directors or people like within the industry that are saying that, hey, we don't have our Citizen Kane or our Godfathers or, whatever. I think it's so far off the mark, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. We have plenty of games, maybe not within the last 10 years, maybe. Well, yes, yeah. There's like a couple of like offshoots from that. Witcher 3, Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate, and I would even put Clair Obscur into that mix. I think that Expedition 33 is an instant like masterpiece / classic that deserves to be like up there with like game of its generation kind of thing. And so I think taking that into consideration, like, but if you look off of like before that, so if we go back to like, I'd say the mid 90s to around 2005, like that, like decade of games, going farther back, older generation of games, like within a span of 10 years, had way more games that were like extremely memorable. Would be, within that category of, masterclass or masterpieces kind of. And so, but I don't think that we see these kind of games anymore, because it's not, a lot of developers aren't making games like outside of indie developers or whatever. I don't think AAA is, well, we all know AAA is not making games for the love of the game, and they're not, it's chasing that investor's call and, what's going to make us money kind of thing. It's not, trying to make something that's just good because what they wanted to make. So I don't know. I think it's just really out of fucking touch to say that there are no masterpieces or, memorable kind of games like that. So I don't know. That's just my opinion.